third row should have been on the inside number 27, but that car has withdrawn, so there's no Will Beach or Mark Rice there, but we do have the number 11 car, that's the Audi TT, started by Ryan Parkin. On row 6 on the inside, it's number 12, Scott Parkin in the Golf. Besides him is another Golf, that's 51, Luke Handley. On, as the safety car has peeled off, we're going to get underway then for 2 hours and 5 minutes of racing. The lights go out, away we go. Good start there by Carl Swift. Tries to get up the inside of Will Stacey, who spins at the first corner as Carl Swift went up the inside of him into turn 1 at target. Luke Browse has spun there as well. Will Stacey's pointing in the wrong direction. So too is Luke Browse. Well, is Will Stacey going to do? He's going to have to do a J-turn and on the grass rejoin, get around the banking, and he will be right at the back of the field basically once he gets back onto the circuit.
One thing Cole Smith cannot afford to do is get a penalty for whatever reason, and he's just taken Will Stacey out of the race or out off the circuit, because there's not much room, is there, to go up the inside free abreast into turn 1.
A bold move,
certainly that is did he need to take that risk on that one of a 2-hour race when they're really in control of the championship?
Possibly not. We'll wait and see if anything's done about that, but it's done enough to get him into the lead of the race at the moment. From in second place, Rob Boston. The Audi TT is coming up the inside though. That's made a pretty good start to the race. That's Ryan Parkin who is starting that car. It's Swift that's leading from number 9 Rob Boston in second, number 11 in third place is Ryan Parkin. That's the car that started on the outside of row 3, and the gap back to 4th position, that's Colin Gillespie in 4th place at the moment at the end of lap 1. We'll try and see exactly where Will Stacey comes through at the end of the first lap. The other car that was involved on lap 1 was Luke Browse as well. That was a separate instance, separate spin there at target on the first lap of the race. There's the 14 car of Chris Freeman, and he is doing battle with a couple of different class, the number 92 Larry Cooper of Andrew Rath.
For Ryan Parkin, that was a really good start, wasn't it? From 6th on the grid in the TT up into 3rd place. I wonder how the TT will deal with these conditions. Pretty well on the start at least. And there is the leader with that tyre mark you can see on the front left of the car. So where's that come from? Because it wasn't that side where the contact was made. So that's interesting. And then Boston in second. Remember, he's a Class B car, but these conditions will mean these classes are going to be equalised out a little bit, because the power isn't so important. This track in general, with tighter sections, is heading that way. In 4th position is Colin Gillespie. He and Phil Schreiber had a good run yesterday to win the Road Sports race. In 5th place is Chris Freeman. So he's involved in a Class B championship battle with Luke Handley. When you account drop scores, there is nothing between Handley and Freeman. So we go across the line. 1:19 is Cole Swift first. I think qualifying that was a 1:13, so 6 seconds off of their own times from this morning. So you can see visibly in the background the conditions looking somewhat rough. There is Handley, he's just behind the Seat there of Andrew Raff, and you can see his championship rival in Class B, Chris Freeman, and teammate as well, just up the road. Then you get Ben Rushworth, who has made a pretty good start just behind Scott Parkin. Ben Rushworth having his first ever laps on the Anglesey circuit this morning. For second place here up at Rocket, Rob Boston has come under pressure, hasn't he, here from Ryan Parkin. If these conditions remain, Jack Harding's lap record's going to be safe, isn't it? Possibly 1:15.15 from a number of years ago now.
Yes, that's right. That was set in July 2017. We also got 1:15.89 for Alan Henderson in Class B, and Paul Sherd and Steve Thomas at 1:19.37 in Class C. So I suspect if these conditions stay as they are, then those records will remain intact. There's the 3 cars. So John Monroe got back out into the race, and that is for position, isn't it? Getting ahead of Mark Lloyd Jones, 28.
Look how much faster he is than all the cars in front of him. So this tyre change might have worked. He's 7 seconds faster than Mark Lloyd Jones, who's a pretty good driver. So he's quicker than all but the leader in his class, and he's only fractionally slower than the Joel Oswick BMW.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, Mark Lloyd Jones, that car is about 14 seconds. That was the first one lap off its pace from qualifying, compared to about 7 seconds or 8 seconds off the pace for John Monroe. But the leading cars out there, they're only about 8 seconds off the pace. So yeah, I think it's more about some drivers being a bit more cautious, maybe, or not as comfortable in these conditions as others. And John Monroe, a quick driver anyway, as we know, so he's sort of a bit more happy with these conditions as well.
And being Scottish, that looks
Might enjoy these weather conditions. What he's tolerating.
You talk about Mark Lloyd Jones there. Of course, he was a driver that started in the pit lane, so perhaps not all as well with that car. That is one of the cars involved in that battle for the Class C Championship. 2.4 seconds was the lead for Cole Swift. Then we get Rob Boston up next here. We look at the battle of fourth. We look at Ben Rushworth getting sideways. Go back to the old hot hatch Hazel, his Integra driving like that. He's just got himself a past Scott Parkin. So Ben Rushworth perhaps enjoying these slippery conditions. He was saying you have to drive this car totally different to the Integra. It understeers a lot more, where the Integra oversteered quite a lot. So he's getting used to it, hasn't really done any testing in it, so all that happens at the track. And sideways here, that's Gillespie, isn't it? Another of the Scottish drivers out there, so that's allowed Chris Freeman to draw up alongside him. The Captain Motorsport Sayer's got the power, but Chris Freeman on the inside line there into Church Corner goes through, and that is fourth position now. So we've got as many Class B cars in the top two as Class A cars now.
Yes.
As the conditions continue to deteriorate, I think.
Yes, they certainly do. We've also got the lap free having started. Edwin Christie has been led by race leader already as we go on to this fifth lap of the race. Luke Rouse, just looking to see where he is. He is in 21st position. Well, Stacey's back to 14th, and he is lapping 121s. So not lapping as quickly as the leaders, but of course he has got traffic to deal with, and maybe if he can find some gaps, he will start to find a bit more time. At the moment, it's about 38 seconds, which is roughly half a lap behind the race leaders as we work like 6 of the race. In fact, just about completed that now for Carl Swift and for Rob Boston, our top 2.
Ben Rushworth continues to improve. He's got himself up ahead of Luke Handley now. So from 13th, Rushworth is 7th. So this is a good drive. We saw a similar thing at Snetterton when he started from the pit lane and worked his way up inside the top 6 before the car had a problem. He had to retire it. But this is a good drive from Rushworth. You comparing lap time compared to the drive this morning, he's only 5 seconds off. So I think he's probably the closest of anybody to his drive over lap time is Ben Rushworth, and he's immediately now on terms with the other Sayets ahead of him, of Andrew Raff and of Colin Gillespie, as the battle behind him between Luke Handley and Scott Parkin continues as they all head uphill past the traffic.
That's the battle for 3rd position within Class B, and 8th place overall. Then into that, Mark Lloyd Jones is green and white BMW show with Ray Baptiste. Work their way through Rocket and now head towards Peel, past that BMW.
Chris Freeman is within a second of the fastest lap of the race of his Class B Golf, so he's going well. They're in 4th. Who's ahead of this group.
Yes, and he's at 20.21, best lap on the previous lap. But even though the conditions appear to be getting worse, there is still some green on our timing screen. Times are coming down. So with a balance, the fact that it's getting slightly wetter out there, possibly with drivers getting more confident with exactly what grip levels there are in the track at this stage of the race. It's not declining very steep, I don't think, the track conditions. So here's 6th and 7th. That's Andrew Raff, number 92, and Ben Rushworth in the number 2 car, the 41-year-old from Alberta, Machine Motorsport man, Metro Cup and Hot Patch champion, previously started racing 8 years ago now. There he is, and he is now ahead of Andrew Raff, as we're watching the battle for 8th. Handley and Parkin here. Parkin in the Darkside Developments car, Handley in the Area Motorsports car, the green, white and grey car. It's ahead at the moment, turning its way into the corner, to a lap there. The orange Scirocco, the Team Brit car. Mark from solo today on her first visit to Anglesey, Dutch lady. And getting experience all the time. Certainly getting experience of some very different conditions here as well.
Not sure many sims, if any, have accuracy, so might not been able to do as much practice where she's more comfortable. But heading there down into the corkscrew once more. for. Fastest lap of the race comes from Rob Boston in the Class B car. That's the fastest lap overall, 1 minute 19.28. He's catching Cole Swift therefore. The gap is 3.3 seconds. So can Rob Boston lead the race in a Class B car? Is that going to be a possibility? Because he's such a talented driver, raced at a reasonable level. Side by side is Rushworth going to get another place here. He's alongside Gillespie now for 5th into Church Corner. Gillespie was testing on Friday, I think. He did the racing yesterday. Ben Rushworth just turned up this morning and he's working his way through the order. He's into 5th position. He's got a bit of a gap now, so we'll see what kind of pace Ben Rushworth has got now with a clear track ahead of him.
Yes, absolutely right. Yes, there's a gap to be made up then, isn't there, before he gets to Chris Freeman, a couple of seconds. So I didn't want to spin there. I think that was Michael Downing who had a spin on the exit of the first part of the Rocket. More traffic being negotiated. It's a relatively short lap here at Anglesey, 1.55 miles. Lap time's taking about 1 minute 20 for the quickest cars in these conditions. So you do end up with this situation where the traffic does hit you rather quickly. As we're watching Gillespie go through. John Hayes also there in the Class C. BMW Class C at the moment is being led by Joel Noswick and Dan Orsano. And they are ahead of Paul Sherd. And Bashir in that class, and Stephen Dolman and Mark Pivnot, who heads that class, starts that car in 23rd position overall. So an hour and 53 minutes left to go. There is the 14 car of Chris Freeman. He has now been caught by Ben Rushworth. This isn't for class position, of course, because Chris Freeman's Golf is a Class B car. Yellow flags there, you'll notice at the bottom of the hill, and that's because we've got the issue at the top of the hill as well.
The lead gap's just a second now, so Rob Boston's closing in quite significantly on the leader now, Cole Swift, in all of this. So we'll have to check out that gap at the end of the lap as Ben Rushworth is drawing up right with Chris Freeman now, who's a couple of seconds behind a couple of laps ago. Lead gap probably gone back out a little bit on this lap, I can see. Here they are, let's have a look. Cole Swift the leader, they're second. Rob Boston through next, it's third, which is Ryan Parkin. Then there's some lapped cars, and then the rest of them a little bit further back. So the gap is 2.6 seconds. So the gap's a sideways moment for Cole Swift there. He has lots of understeer as he corrects it, but the car moving around. But he's happy with that, I should imagine, with his talent level. So Cole Swift pushing on, lapping the Browse car. So it's lapping the car in 18th position up next. I think the lead gap is changing about with the traffic. There goes Swift in up the inside of the two lapped cars. I think the yellow flags have gone in now, haven't they? So he made sure he got past before he got into the more technical section where it's not so easy to overtake. And Rob Boston is going to have that challenge. The driver there in second position.
Yep, he's there in the Lotus. He's just moved past the Stone Glass BMW. That's the car that was off in the first turn. And that's the third place car as well of Ryan Parkin. So he seems to be closing in a little bit as well on the top two. The Audi TT that he shares with Daniel Sebastian was not particularly happy meeting for them at Silverstone last time out. Hoping things go better here. So the top three are going across the line to complete their 10th lap.
And another fastest lap here for Rob Boston at 119.19.
Immediately it's been beaten by Ryan Parkin, just at a 119.08. So Parkin, the quickest driver on that lap, the quickest driver out there in all at the moment. So there's 1.59 seconds between the two leaders. It is about 2.6 seconds between the latest of Rob Boston and the Ryan Parkin Audi TT.
And Ben Rushworth's fourth now. He's got himself up ahead of Chris Freeman. He's 5 further seconds behind the TT. And he said that's such a quick lap last time. Ryan Parkin just going through shot there. It's great to see the TT up there. And 3 different types of cars at the front as well. The Seat, the Lotus and the Audi. All separated by not very much after 10 laps of racing.
We're not quite as overwhelmed as sometimes we are by the number of Coopers that front of the field. So not quite as many of them here this weekend. Lotus is on the front row. Initially, now Glass was on 1:18.51, but Boston is 1:18.50. So it goes faster.
Ryan Parker goes even faster than that, like the previous lap, 1:18.31. So now we're only 3 seconds away from the lap record, and so are the conditions starting to improve a little bit. Perhaps as the lap times start to come down a little bit. It's 3 abreast here into turn 1. Luke Handley was involved in that. He's dropped to 9th, I think, now behind Scott Parkin. Yeah, he's got a long way back too. So Luke Handley, Class B Championship leader, not having such a good time in the first part of this race, and he's now coming under pressure from Matt Fazy, who's out there in the Porsche Cayman. It's the only Porsche in the race here. And then Will Stacey is next in 11th, but he doesn't seem to have so much pace like he did in the dry qualifying session. And he's 20 odd seconds behind these cars as well, so he's got a lot of work to do at this stage for Will Stacey after that first lap incident, which involved the current race leader, Cole Swift, who is 1.5 seconds ahead of Rob Boston. Fazy there, a bit wide, trying to get past the traffic. That's Julian McBride, who I don't think's probably enjoying these conditions terribly in the big BMW M3 that currently runs in 20th position.
Yes, so the car in 10th place, lapping the car in 20th position there.
Ben Rushworth, fastest lap of the race. The driver who qualified 13th this morning is now the quickest driver on the circuit. 1:18.21 for Ben Rushworth, just 9 seconds behind the race leader.
Price a win for Ben Rushworth and his teammate James Ramsden there in this race.
Ben Rushworth is saying they don't know how to get the dry setup as good as Area Motorsport have run these cars for much longer. They can't really afford to go testing much either. But now the conditions have changed, where driver skill perhaps pays more of, and he's so happy with driving a car that slides around. We saw that so much in the Hot Hatch Championship. This is really being shown here in 4th position. And can Ben Rushworth start to catch those 3 cars ahead of him? He's had to learn so much this year, because he's normally done 15-minute races and completed much longer stints here, which he's not used to. He's not used to, he said, being knackered after a stint. And also lap traffic, not something he's really had to worry about too much.
We're going to get a good scrap, I think, for second within Class C, because quite close together now are Johnny Hayes and John Monroe on 66, the BMW V180i, and the number 3 Mazda MX-5 respectively. So that's a good scrap in the offing, but they're both quite a long way clear of the Autoworks entry of John Oswick and Dan Orsano.
Ben Rushworth was a full second faster than all the cars in front of him on that lap, so the gap, which was 9 seconds to the leader, is now 8. He's just 3.7 seconds behind Ryan Parkin in the Audi TT. Here's Stacey, isn't it, across the line, so he's still there in 11th.
And we've got the battle on the screen we're talking about now, John, so that's the battle for second, and John Munro has got through. He's got ahead of Johnny Hayes, and so number 3, John Munro, takes second place in that Mazda MX-5 that pitted at the beginning of the race. Got new tyres put on it, and what lap times has it been doing? Well, he has done a 1:27.09. Yes, the Hayes and Sabiano going on the previous lap to 1:30.
How's it compared to the leader?
The best lap for Monroe is a 1:25.88 compared to 1:28 for Hayes. The 1:25.88 is only about 7.5 seconds off the best lap time, whereas this morning, how far off would that have been? Just try and have a look. They would have been about 8 seconds off, so it's a little bit closer to the pole position, the front running pace, if you like, than he would have been in the driving.
How's he compared to Joel Oswick, who leads as well? So, you know,
Joel Oswick, their best is 1:24, and the lap is 1:25, so it's not really going to catch them right now.
But a good drive by John Munro in a car that he was telling me it really lacked power against some of the competition. There is the Class C leader, so there is Joel Oswick in the German Autoworks BMW, just ahead there on the road of David Gooden, as Ian said. John Munro up to second now in the class, and third for that BMW Paul Saviani. Fourth is going the way of Joe Ritchie, and fifth position for Matt Himlock. There is Munro then in second in the class. There's Will Stacey, so he's 11th. He's still 42 seconds behind the leader like he was earlier, so he's lapping the same time as the leader. His teammate, though, has just done the fastest lap of the race. Rob Boston has done a 1 minute 17.62, so he continues to push on, 2.6 seconds behind the race leader, Cole Swift.
There we can see Scott Harkin, number 12, in 8th position, second place within Class B, heading down towards the corkscrew there.
That's not no penalty ball that's just gone out.
If it has, I didn't see here, it was 2. So we'll see if anyone does indeed stop into the pit lane in the near future.
There's Rushworth in 4th place, 8 seconds behind the leader now. On the last lap he was a full second faster than Ryan Parkin, who is, well, he's only 1.9 seconds in front of him, but I can't see Parkin ahead of him now. So has Rushworth made a mistake, or has the Audi TT
I'm
made
wondering
the
if
error?
the Audi TT's in the pits.
Ah,
If it is
that what
I
the
can't
penalty
see it.
board
I don't know if
was?
our roving camera can see if there is a car in the pit lane. We'll see if we can spot anything down
yes,
there.
it is.
There it is, and it is in the penalty box. So
I think it was a minute, it said. What I
So
caught a glimpse of.
that could, I've not got the bulletin with me, have I? But that could well be something like a yellow flag infringement or something like that.
Of course, we saw those yellows going uphill, and
Yeah.
you could overtake, or you shouldn't, but you could have overtook in that section. So, well, after a really good stint for Ryan Parkin, he's dropped way down the order, therefore, and he's going to rejoin right by the leader, Cole Swift, who's not leading by much anymore because Rob Boston's only 1.2 seconds behind. He's at the fastest lap a lap ago, so they head off down towards the banking. And Cole Swift is just behind Ryan Parkin, so I don't think that's going to help his situation particularly. So they're heading down towards Church Corner, the 2 leaders. There they are, there's Cole Swift, just 1.2 seconds ahead then as they go through Church. And just behind him, the Class B leader, Rob Boston. There he is in the Lotus Elise, the fastest driver on the circuit.
Looking at the list of possible penalties, that's the only thing that could have been overtaking under the yellow flag that drops them back, effectively drops back a lap, hasn't it now? So there you can see them together.
Swift has got past, hasn't he? Got past Parkin, so that's quite handy. It might not be so easy for Rob Boston to do that because he won't have the power in a straight line. More yellow flag he's got it.
Yes, and this is on the approach to the field. So is there a car off there? We can see one. Maybe something in the corkscrew. I'm just going to look out of the window to see what I can see, but
If the camera
no
pick up.
clues. There's Swift heading down, and of course he's got this not a dissimilar pace between himself and Rob Boston, so as you say, that could be quite helpful to him, because it might well keep Rob Boston at bay for a more prolonged period of time. Here's the Bespoke car, that was the Bespoke car. There's the orange Porsche Boxster of Michael Downey, and he is number 76, so you can see where he is running. At the moment he's in 22nd position, one of the Class B drivers. We've had a spin from Mark Lloyd-Jones in number 98. That's up at the top of the circuit, so that might well have been the explanation for the yellow flags. He's rejoined. Let's say Mark Lloyd-Jones going back out into the race, and this green flags you can see there now at Rocket.
There's Swift. Has Boston managed to lap Parkin too? He hasn't, has he? So that's might start to hold him back. We know Ryan Parkin's pretty quick. He's in the 12th position at the moment, but now with one of the fastest. Oh, he's got past, hasn't he? So he's not around getting past. So good job there by Rob Boston then to get into second place in this. Well, he's still in second place in the race, but now without any traffic between himself and the leader, Rob Boston, a former Race of Remembrance race winner, I think last year's winner, and he knows his circuit really well and is chasing down the race leader, Cole Swift. 1.6 seconds is the gap. Ben Rushworth's chase has sort of come to a pause now because he's started to fall away again from the top two, who head their way through the bank in different lines being used. Front-wheel drive, heavier Seat, rear-wheel drive, lighter Lotus, therefore in these conditions perhaps needing to use different lines for that to be a factor. Of course, something also will be a factor later is the pit stop penalties from the success last time out at Silverstone, which includes Cole Swift and Rob Baker's 30-second extra long stop.
Yeah, just going to have a run through those. So in, what, 5 minutes or so, the pit lane window will open, and then there has to be a 3-minute stop maybe between then and before 15 minutes before the end of the race. But if you have success on previous races, you have to have an additional length of stop. So Class A, Car 1, Car 2, Huawei will have to stop for another 30 seconds. Jeff Tramston and Ben Bush will have to stop for an extra 20 seconds. Colin Gillespie and Phil Driver for an extra 10 seconds. In Class B, Chris Freeman for an extra 30, Luke Hanley for an extra 20, Steve Houston and Matt Fazy for an extra 10. And in Class C, Joel Oswick and Dan Ossono for an extra 30, Johnny Hayes and Ross Biondi for an extra 20, and Nick Dougal and John Drove for 10 seconds. So as a general point, I think it is, in most cases, the sort of main contenders within each class, they're getting those penalties, with the exception of Rob Boston.
Yeah, though perhaps for Class A it's not a problem for Goldschmidt and Rob Baker, but an overall victory, that could change how we're going. For fourth on the road, Colin Gillespie and Chris Freeman have got themselves together. So that's Gillespie, I think, coming through the order on recent laps. He got himself ahead of Andrew Rapp, and now he's got himself ahead of Chris Freeman as well. As they lap the Holden, you thought they might have a problem in this race. They've actually got to 14, so not too bad, is it, considering the conditions there for Will Ashmore. And Will Ashmore is fighting for the Clubman Cup Championship, just a few points ahead of the Roses, but they've not travelled to Anglesey. And third in the championship, I think, Nigel Greensill and David Goodin. A big spin out of Church. That's for one of our Class C front runners. Paul Sabayani's had a big rotation out of Church Corner. He's facing the wrong way on the wet grass. There he is. It's a difficult job for him to get back on the road, but he's done it.
Yeah, it's the 66 car of Johnny Hayes then that gets back onto the circuit. Here's Colin Gillespie. And a spin for Yvonne Houffalard and G collects number 14 Chris Freeman, the second place car in Class B, and he's got damage, I think, to the radiator of his car. There's damage to the suspension of Yvonne Houffalard's Scirocco though as well, and I suspect this is going to lead to an interruption.
3 minutes to the pit stop window.
Yes, before the pit stop window is about to open. Freeman's car is down. I suspect that's going to be all to combat, as will be, I'm afraid, the team of Scirocco, Yvonne Houffalard, who's spun coming out of Peel. Poor Chris Freeman had nowhere to go.
And this is Class B Championship consequences in as a safety car boards are being prepared, because Chris Freeman, when you took drop scores into account, equivalent Candy, talk us through what happened here.
Yeah, so we've got Yvonne Houffalard, just the back end of the car stepping out. She lost grip and just nose to nose, wasn't it really? The two cars, that's damaged the right front suspension of Yvonne Houffalard's car, and I suspect it's the radiator of Chris Freeman's car that's the most significant problem. So Yvonne trying to get her car moved. Chris Freeman has got his car back to the pits, but it's looking a bit launched.
Yvonne Houffalard going briefly.
Yes.
But the safety car has gone out onto the circuit.
Yes, with, as you say, 2 minutes or so before the pit lane window opens. Chris Freeman's car has just sort of stopped there. There's no team as yet having gone to assist there. They are arriving.
I wonder if they told him to stop, because obviously if you go damage like that, it might damage the car even more. But they want to, with the potential of cars pitting very shortly, that I'm sure the officials won't want him to be stopped there for too long.
Yes, exactly. Of course, this obviously give a mandatory stop. The scrutineer saying you can get the car out of the way, but we'll see how that is. On a spin for Edward Christie. That's interesting, because we don't have yellow flags there.
The Browse car is stopped as well, going up the hill towards the Rocket hairpin.
Oh yes, that's just on the right hand side of the circuit, and there it is on screen now. That's on the track. Just like the National Circuit cut through.
Are we going to be at a point where the pit stops could be made on this lap? But you've got this fuel issue, haven't you? You've got to have a fuel tank that'll last an hour and a half.
Right, the three back markers that the safety car picked up now and waved past, so it is now Carl Swift from Boston behind the safety car.
This is going to bring Will Stacey right back into contention, and with that penalty for Carl Swift and Rob Baker at the pit stops, now everyone's been closed back together. That'll be more of an issue.
And I can see that the Chris Freeman car is being pushed away by the team, the Motorsport team, so they may be able to work on it to get him back out of the race for some points, but clearly not going to be contending for major honours now in Class B.
Is that fluid all the way down the pit lane?
Looks like it could be.
So with a slippery track, everyone's going to have to be cautious, aren't they, when they come into the pits?
Marshall in the pit lane is dressing there. There will be some fluid, I should think, out on the circuit as
course, we saw Edward Christie spin, didn't we? I wonder if that's related to the possible fluid on the circuit.
So driver's got to try and pick their way through some debris and some fluid under Ron Hoofar's car that's on the circuit here. So the safety car making the very straight. The marshal rushing towards Yvonne's car.
So the pit window
is okay.
It's going to open pretty much as the cars get here, aren't they? Isn't it?
Yes, but the safety car board's being shown. The pit window board isn't being shown. I would think it should now be open.
Leader stays out, Cole Swift stays out. The Rob Boston's in, the second place man is into the pit lane. Ryan Parkin is following him. Ben Rushworth stays out. The Giannetta's coming in, the Chris Webster car. Driver stays out. So I think a lot of people don't think they can do over an hour and a half on fuel here by the looks of it.
Well, that's the issue, isn't it? I mean, it is sort of 3/4 of the race that you'd be looking to try to do on one tank of fuel.
You won't be using as much fuel with the conditions.
And the long on the safety cars as well, and the conditions possibly mean more safety car time as well.
So Rob Boston's obviously taken the punt, hasn't he, to be the first man in. You're going to lose a lap, aren't you, for the pit stop with 3 minutes, I would think.
Yes, I think you might be right.
So it's just the 2 in, isn't it, I think? So 9 Rob Boston and 8 Chris Webster. So fuel going into those cars. The Luke Brow's car hasn't got back going, has it? See that in the background?
No, so that's going to have to be recovered, I think, by the recovery truck. Those will be sent out onto the circuit momentarily, I'm sure, just as soon as there's a suitable gap in the traffic. Number 5 comes in. That's Jonathan Packer in his Golf. He was in 10th position.
Yeah, he wasn't up there, was he, with the other Golfs?
No.
That had been going well. The best of them was, of course, that one who unfortunately got caught up in the incident. Not Chris Freeman's fault at all, but he got caught up in that incident a moment ago, and he was the leading of them. Jonathan Packer's in the championship hunt. He, when drop scores were accounted for, is 8 behind Luke Handley.
You can see one of the recovery trucks now dealing with the Luke Brow's car, so that's going to be hauled out of the way, and the other truck is just making its way around the circuit. It'll take a moment or two to get to Yvonne Hoofar's car. The 750 Motor Club rescue vehicle is all there. Let Yvonne out of the car, and the 750 Motor Club rescue crew on scene as well. And it's the safety car coming through. Carl Swift just behind it, of course, with Rob Boston having come into the pit lane. Was shown on the time screen as the leader, but that's because he had to come into the pits and therefore cross the timing line first. Of course, the pit stops have to be at least 3 minutes plus any penalties that have to be served, so it is quite a long time in the pits. It does give plenty of time to get any checks done, as well as the fueling, and where appropriate the driver change as well. So number 8, that being in, that will be a driver change. Chris Webster to hand over to Matthew Tidmarsh, of course.
Leaders in Ian. Cole Swift is elected to come in to hand over to the boss, Rob Baker, who was telling me that he has had the fastest lap of that pairing more often than not this year.
Yeah, Rob Baker is there. He's ready to get into the car, isn't he? Usually it's Carl Swift that does most of the race.
Yeah.
It looks like Rob Baker is going to take on that mantle on this occasion.
Will Stacey in, who, as I say, might be brought back into contention here. He's going to park up against his team boss. Also in his field, he's Colin Gillespie, who will hand over to Phil Driver, who went really well yesterday, the former British GT man. And where Stacey's parked is, I think, been a bit awkward. So the team are having to remove it and put it back into the place as Rob Boston is prepared to go out, but there's red lights at the end of the pit lane.
You've got to be 3 minutes stationary, haven't you? So that's going to mean a longer stop for Will Stacey.
Right, okay. But so as long as he gets out, I guess, on the same lap. Now, is the tyres being changed on the area Seat? The car jacked up, I see. There's the capture car. Julian McBride is in as well.
Yeah, so most cars, yet, but a good number of cars now coming in. Let's see. And there may be some more that are underneath our commentary box that we can't see as well. Our vantage point, there's Julian McBride getting out of his car while the refueling is done.
So he has to take to a seat, doesn't he? Because he's one of the disabled drivers who come out in the Club Enduro Championship.
So there you can see the recovery truck ready to recover the team at Scirocco, Yvonne Hoofer.
don't think Smith and Baker changed tyres. It was obviously tyre pressures they were adjusting down there. It's Jeff still racing, thinking about tyres with Julian McBride there. They had the jack out. Fancy bit of PAG engine, isn't it, in the race prepared engine in the Seat.
Yeah, you can see the team trying to sort of wipe the inside of the windscreen as well. It's obviously been misting up, and that's been causing problems for Colin Gillespie, I should think. And obviously Phil Driver won't want to have to contend with that in the second part of the race, but these are the kind of conditions, the mild conditions, but moist conditions. I think we'll get that misting on the windscreen.
Jonathan Packer's just missed his chance to get out onto the circuit because the lights have gone red and he's drove through them.
Oh dear, yes, that does look rather like the lights were on red there as he left the pit lane. So that's something that will be looked into, I'm sure, as this race goes on by the officials.
Michael Downey's got damage on his box, hasn't he? So he's another Porsche out there. He's lost his front bumper though. Ben Rushworth's gone through to lead the race. Scott Parkin is staying out too, I think, and Andrew Rath, they're the top three.
Yes, that's right. The first car behind the safety car now, though, is the Barrett's BMW, isn't it, I think?
Yep. So there's the Area Motorsport team. Got Luke Handley up next to teammate Rob Baker. So through has gone Rob Boston. Overtake in position on the track. That will all come clearer once the safety car period is over. There's Luke Handley, one of our Class B contenders. There's Stacey now. Stacey going to get out ahead of Baker. He is. So Will Stacey gets back ahead of the car that he had contact with at the start of the race, and they're going to be together on track on a restart here. But now with Rob Baker in the Seat.
We've had the MX-5s in below us, Matt Pimmock handing over to Steve Dolman and Joseph Ritchie to Paul Sherd. They're going to have the best part of an hour and a half to do in this race, so quite a few teams taking opportunity of this safety car that came as early as it could do in the in relation to the pit window to make their stops. Of course, there's always the possibility we might get another safety car within the window, but decided not to take the chance and waited for a second one.
I'd imagine as well with Ben Rushworth and James Ramsden, there's the assumption that Ben will be a bit quicker, yes. So therefore they're staying out and seeing what happens as the race goes on, basically.
I think that makes sense if you do have a driver pairing where you have one driver felt to be quicker than the other.
I'm not sure all is well here, is it, with the driver car? We saw the bonnet up on that. I think it's been in longer than it needs to be right now.
Yes, so that was up there, but we're losing ground here. The safety car's doing laps in about 2.5 minutes at the moment, so you're only losing sort of probably a lap on while the safety car's out, where you probably lose 3 laps. Getting on for 3 laps in quite fitting under race conditions, under normal conditions. There's a lot of fluid out, I think, from the Chris Freeman car. Some of it was stressed, but not all of it could be, but a bit late.
Matt Basie stayed out, didn't he, in Steve Hewson's Porsche. Scott Parkin. He's been in as well lately.
I know Matt Fazy, talking of him, he's a very great advocate and really enjoys driving at Anglesey, so that's possibly why he is keen to get in. The 12 car going back out into the race, that's Scott Parkin.
He did fit, yeah. So Rob Boston in 10th is the leading stopper, isn't he?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Ahead of his teammate, Will Stacey, and then the Stroll leader, Rob Baker, now taking over the car from Cole Swiftled. So yeah, this pit stop's still ongoing down at Camp Motorsport.
Yes.
So the road sports winners from yesterday obviously have had problems. They're all falling down the timing of the screens, but not losing as much time now, obviously, than if we were under green flag conditions.
That's right. So for the moment at least, the race order's not going to make a huge degree of sense, but we do think that Rob Boston's the leading stopper at the moment, with Stacey, I think, second at the stoppers, and Rob Baker third at the stoppers, their 10th, 11th and 12th overall. And there's the Scirocco still trying to recover that car. They're having to attack it from a different angle now. They get it on backwards, which was the original thought. Try and pull it on forwards.
One corner that's not going to be very helpful.
Yeah, right front damaged as we saw.
There's some kind of fluid or something that's come out that
Well,
day.
they've got the hose pipe on it as well though earlier, haven't they? So I don't know if that's something to do with what's going on.
It's not been a good day for that team because before the race even started, we lost the Beach and Grice car. Now the teammate car is in strife.
That's hard work. That is really hard work, waving 2 yellow flags in these conditions. So well done to the marshal on post day, although I think he might be giving up. He was looking for some shelter, I think, there. But yes, many thanks to all of the marshals here at Anglesey this weekend. As we always say, we couldn't go motor racing without you to do an invaluable job. It's really appreciated, especially in these conditions by all the teams and the competitors as well. John Barrett is coming to the pit stop about number 7. So he was the first car behind the safety car, though it's a bit further down the order, 15th I think. So that car's going to be refuelled.
That's the Motorsport team down there.
Spinner, that's interesting.
Is that right?
Yes, it is the Judy McBride car. That's spun coming out of the final corner, obviously behind the safety car. It's pointing in the wrong direction. He's got the car fired up again. He's going to get the car, trying to get the car turned around. He's going to have to reverse, I think. He has got plenty of gap to do that right now.
Not much is occurring though.
No. So I wonder if the car... Oh, no, there we go. Reversing. Hopefully get the car turned back round and get back into the safety car train.
I think it's windy out there, Ian.
I think it might be. The noise on our mics tells you that. The flag's been waved by the marshals tell you that. Really horrible conditions out there now. And it can get like this at Anglesey very readily. Indeed, obviously a very exposed location on the Irish Sea coast, the Irish Sea just yards away. And this is a significant pit stop as well, because this is David Gooding coming in to hand over to Nigel Greensall in the 179 car. Nigel is now a very quick and experienced professional driver. So he's taking over for the second part of the race. We saw him do a good job yesterday as well in Motorsport.
And these conditions surely will suit what he can do in a car. Whether the M3 suits the conditions, that didn't matter, but I'm sure it'll suit Nigel Greensall, who's so rapid in so many different types of car. He started racing with David Good in a Jaguar E-Type, but they've moved into this M3 this year. Looks like they're still racing, running the car for them down there in the pit lane.
I think he still has the lap record of a coupe, doesn't he, on the original circuit?
That would never get beaten.
No, indeed, the pre-chicane layout in a Formula 1 car. We're racing at Mallory Park. It's one of the Ford 1600, of course, the Star of Mallory races and race there. Good question. I'm delving into that. Marcus Simmons is probably the man that would know, because he keeps track of the fastest laps at every circuit each year. Not Hampton. The Autosport journalist. Right, if Von Huffeler's car's been recovered, so very soon I would think we will be able to go back to green flag racing. You can still see the Colin Gillespie Phil Driver car, which should be being taken over by Phil Driver for the second part of the race. That is still in the pit lane. We've got a driver in the car, but it's been in there for 10 minutes, if not more now. Maybe 15 minutes it's been in there, that car.
The well-known website of information suggests a Gould, which is really a hill climb car, a 101.7, which we weren't that far away from earlier with the Jedi's.
Okay, Sylvie Mullins, the Irish racer. So it must be the Irish boss race. once the motor could have been over there. So the Gillespie cars was about to go back, and then I think there was just some concern. Something on the left front, and checked that, and that car was going back out in place, but it's lost not as many laps as it would have done, of course. It's probably lost about 4 or 5 laps though in this safety car period with that extended pit stop there. You can see the marshals doing the best to dress the fluid that's been put down, oil I think it is, that's been put down by Chris Freeman car when that came into the pits.
Did you notice any Class C cars that came in? Because obviously now in 6th position overall is Joel Oswick.
I didn't. Did I? Yes, Paul and Joseph Ritchie came in.
She'd have been quick now.
Yes. Steve Dobbin and Matt Plimlock came in. Didn't notice about Hayes and Sigliani, and I didn't notice about Nick Dougal or John Murray, but I expect them all to keep Jim Murray out there as long as possible.
Yes, that could be interesting, couldn't it? But I think we're about to get racing back underway, are we, with Ben Rushworth. We'll have a clear lap for a few laps of this race. So the safety car comes in, and Ben Rushworth will accelerate out of the final corner and see a green flag.
And he will want to get as much time between himself and anyone else as he can here. He's got the clear track ahead of him, so he'll get 2 or 3 laps of that, and this could be quite important in terms of his overall finishing position.
The battle to probably watch, the cars coming across the line now, Will Stacey versus Rob Baker, as they go down towards turn 1, the Lotus and the Seat, to see who's got the pace at this point of the race. Of course, Rob Boston there is ahead of them, as there's an instant for one of those Class C cars.
Johnny Hayes is off the road, trying to get the car turned before he got to the barriers at the banking, and he did. So that's at least the second off that he has had. He's getting back out into the race in the number 66 car.
There's Boston, and 2 cars between he and his teammate Will Stacey, and then behind him is Rob Baker. So they're the top 3 cars to have pitted at this stage of the race. There's Stacey then, just behind the Class C leader, Joel Oswick. He's not going to be behind him for long. Goes down the inside of the German Autoworks car and goes through. So Stacey's race has come back to him now, hasn't it? Where it looked to be in tatters at turn 1 of the race. But situations have changed, and now he's right back in it. And on this restart, the Lotus, the leases look pretty good.
Yep, they do. So we need to see how things will pan out. Conditions, I think, look as if they've improved a little bit while the safety car has been out. They're not quite lashing the windows as it was. Still very windy out there, as we know, but see what the lap times look like as this race gets back underway. No?
Oh, Stacey's car's got a problem. There's smoke coming from it.
Yes.
So,
yes. So
how situations change.
Yep, and it looks like he's going to pull off there quite soon. So Will Stacey, number 49, looked like he got back into contention. Now out of it again with problems. We saw him have dramas early in the road sports race yesterday as well, when he'd done a tremendously good job in qualifying. But he's going to pull off onto the infield here. Now the question is, where's he going to put it? Because it's a long way to the marshal's post, and if he leaves it there, I suspect we might have to have one of the caution areas. Yeah, but we'll see. We'll see. I may be wrong.
So Rushworth pulled out 10 seconds on that first lap in. He was lapping way faster than everybody else. Obviously, went out the traffic. Oh, the Holden that's 4th has gone straight on at the hairpin. We'll get back on though for Will Ashmore.
And that's a change for second place there, because Matt Fazy now in the Porsche Cayman has got ahead of Andrew Raff in the Seat Leon. And of course, that's a Class B car for Matt Fazy, who loves Anglesey. Not quite sure what he thinks about the rain, but nevertheless, he's going well. We've got cars on really trying to sort themselves out. You've got Ryan parking there. Safety car is coming back out, as I hinted that it might do. I don't think the yellows have gone all the way. Oh, yes, they have gone all the way around the circuit. So, what yellow flags and cars side by side once again through the corkscrew. So they really need to sort themselves out into some kind of an order.
Well, we've already seen penalties for overtaking on the yellows.
Yes, so we'll keep an eye on whether we get any more.
Andrew Raff was pitted, by the way, immediately once the safety car boards come out, as was Michael Downey. But from 3rd place for Andrew Raff.
Yes, so safety car has picked up Ben Rushworth. So that 10 seconds or whatever he gained is now gone. He's got Matt Fazy right behind him now. And Rob Boston then is the next car through, and that is for position, isn't it? Yes, he is up to third place now with this the Abu Rath car coming in. So Rob Boston now in a really good position here, and not such a good position as it turns out, I don't think. Although that Boston's a lap down, isn't he? You need to remember that. So he's a lap down.
He should cycle to the front when others pit. Do you reckon it's still not raining so much here?
Well, I don't think it was when I said that, but it is now. It's raining a bit harder again as this safety car's come out. So you can see Will Stacey here getting wet. He's out of his car over there on the exit of the banking on the infield, and so that hole needs to be covered. Of course, the two recovery trucks have also got to offload the cars that they picked up in Von Hoefelaar's car, and there's some damage to Michael Downey's car from the first part of the race. But yeah, the two recovery trucks actually have already offloaded their cargo and are heading over to collect Will Stacey.
Couldn't really see much damage on Stacey's car, so for what looked like a dramatic moment on that first lap from the vantage point we had, but there was a slight contact that first seemed to be the case.
Yeah, well, I wasn't completely sure that there was much contact because he did get down the inner side. Did not Swift, and it was bold, it was decisive, but I think Stacey managed to keep out of the way. It did go off, but I'm not sure there was contact there necessarily. The recovery truck has now arrived at Will Stacey's car. Oh, there goes our camera. With 1 hour and 14 minutes left to go. Slippery surface flag is out as well, and that is because the car of Will Stacey obviously put some fluid. I'm sorry, it's smoke. It's also put some fluid coming out of that car as well, and so that needs to be dealt with as well. So the marshal try and address that. The 169 car is into the pit lane. That's Ben Salmon handing over to William Lynch. On the Class A cars, the BMW M3.
We're heading to the second half of the race now, aren't we? I think it's on a penalty area.
Yes, that's the 5 car of Jonathan Packer.
The red lights, that would be.
Yes, we saw that be ported. So he's having to serve that penalty. There's Stacey's Lotus being towed away. So depending on whether there's anything that's done, and obviously in these conditions it's increasingly difficult to figure out fluid that's spilt onto the circuit. But if there's nothing done about it, then we'll be able to get back racing fairly soon, I would think.
Until something goes up on it, potentially.
Silly.
So for Boston and Baker, they're quite close to the front of the queue now, aren't they, where they weren't on that original start. So that could be interesting to see how that goes. Packer's had his penalty on his way, and he's cautious to see which light's being shown, I'm sure.
Yes, green this time. The prime one. So,
track does look a bit oily, don't it, out there?
Perfect condition.
But like you say, there's probably not very much that can be done about it now.
Not in these conditions. Dan is getting back in. We've got Marlon Jones come in, hasn't he, to hand over to Roy Baptiste. He's spotted him downstairs. He's one of the Class C drivers, of course. There is that car, so Roy Baptiste, number 98, will get into that. Baptiste, who is 4th in the championship. Tim Martins and Mark Lloyd Jones coming into this weekend.
Into the pits comes the class leader and the championship leader within that class, Joel Oswick in the German Autoworks car. So Dan Orsano will get to do the second half. Yeah, or more than half, because we've got an hour and 11 minutes still to go. Driver out before we get underway. There's the 49 car of Will Stacey. Being hauled away. It's just on the exit of church at the moment. I'd be interested to watch the lap times on the restart, because it would seem the conditions have deteriorated somewhat since that safety car came in. That's correct, yeah. There's the Oswick and Orsano car. Fueling going on. It's turned down machine. There's the 98 car of Baptiste. Baptiste
taking over that car for the second half. Keen to get out once the green light's on.
The German Autoworks car has been jacked up. Our Class C leader, are they going for a tyre change, or is there a problem there? We can get a closer look at this. This could be quite crucial as a Class Championship leader and a Class leader in the race up to this point. We can get our camera to have a look at that. That'd be good. As the Will Stacey car is about to be brought across the circuit into the paddock, so therefore we want to go green flag racing this time, which isn't ideal if German Autoworks are still going their pit stop. Let's they see if that is the case, if it's happy with the track condition. Yeah, the mechanic completely under the car here, so there is a tyre change going on the rear left. Is there more damage than that? Well, they're doing a suspension setup change possibly there to accommodate the change of conditions from an hour ago when they were getting ready to start the race. So interesting stuff there for the Class C Championship leaders. And the safety car lights are out, so Ben Rushworth will see a green flag again, just like he did about 10 minutes ago, and we'll get this race back underway. But just behind him, in what is currently second position, is Matt Fazy. Then behind him is the third place man, but a lap down, Rob Boston. And then there's a car between himself and his main rival to potentially battle for the win here, Rob Baker. And Rob Baker dipped a wheel over the grass there, coming out of the first corner. The lead has gone off. Ben Rushworth spun away the lead. We said the conditions had changed. He was the first driver to get there at speed. We know there was a bit of oil down as well, and Ben Rushworth has spun away the lead. So it's Matt Fazy, that man that likes Anglesey, in the Class B Porsche that leads the motor race.
But only for the moment, because Rob Boston is right behind him, a lap down, so he's got to unlap himself. But these cars are going to be not that similar in performance. Right behind Boston, you've got the Audi TT. That is a further lap behind.
Yep.
So
Daniel Sylvester looking pretty good in it. Probably the first time he's driven it in the wet, I would think. The MI2 Championship racer.
Yep. So the interesting situation here, where you've got Matt Fazy, who could potentially be continuing to lead, but unlapped. Of course, he's got a stop to make as Matt Fazy to hand over to Steve Hewson for the second part of the race. There's parking a bit Sylvester a bit sideways in the Darkside Developments Audi. You've got Rob Baker then. Oh, and another off for the 66 car. He's been off there before. That's Paul Subiani now in that car, though, isn't it? So they have changed drivers during the first part of the race.
Okay, so how are the leaders going to get on down here? Because it's very slippery through the banking. So Matt Fazy and Rob Boston taking different lines. Boston going right up against the white line on the high side. And look at the grip he finds out there.
Yeah, it's the karting line, isn't it, as they say?
And he couldn't get past Fazy there to unlap himself. There's something else that could happen here. If he gets ahead of Fazy, then the safety car comes out again. He'll come right back onto the end of the first lap, where everybody else will be a lap down, I guess.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting situation. How are the lap times comparing to earlier? Well, they're in the 23s and 24s now, so a lot slow. Obviously, the track's not in good condition. But for our Class C Championship leader, still in the pit lane, so real dramas for the German Autoworks car. Dan Orsano not back out in the race. So the Class C leader is now the Mazda MX-5 of John Munro and Nick Dougal. Second in the class will be Paul Sheard, who has already made his stop.
Yes.
In the Mazda MX-5 Mark III.
Yeah, John Munro yet to make the stop, of course. Here's Matt Fazy sideways, pushing on through the corkscrew. So you've got four quick cars here together, and you could see how oily the circuit was at the corkscrew there, couldn't you? So conditions really difficult. What are these lap times looking like as they come through? Matt Fazy comes across the line again. That was a 1:23 for him. So yeah, that's 4 seconds off his best time during the course of the race.
Rushworth's 2 seconds quicker than this lot in second place in the race.
He's 6 seconds behind, so he's soon going to catch them again, isn't he? As Boston now tries to unlap himself from Matt Fazy at Church, and he has done it. So he goes on to the lead lap again, does Rob Boston. And Matt Fazy behind him. And then you've got Daniel Sylvester now. He's 2 laps behind the Porsche. So needs to do quite a bit of work here. And then you've got the Baker and Swift car, which is on the same lap has Ron Boston, well, just behind Ron Boston, effectively. That is position.
West is on the inside of Fazy.
Yeah, so he's unlapped himself as well, and I suspect Rob Baker might do so before too much longer as well.
So the only rear-wheel drive car that really seems to be able to take it to the front-wheel drive machines at this stage are the Lotus Elises, isn't it? And perhaps help by having such a talented Rob Boston at the wheel of it, who comes across the line there in third place, but on the lead lap now, which is not the case currently for Rob Baker. Look at Ben Rushworth, he's continuing to chase that pack down. He was, what, 2.5 seconds quicker on that lap than the leader, Matt Fazy. So Ben Rushworth might get the lead back, but his stint perhaps not gone quite to plan. Further back in 5th place is Scott Parkin. He's ahead of Luke Handley now. Oh, and Fazy's there, he's sideways right in front of the championship leader, and Rob Baker just avoided him. He could have had a very similar situation. Look, still having a moment here is Matt Fazy. What, 100 or 200, and there's another car gone off behind him. So that's the Hayes car again, isn't it?
Yeah,
Hayes and Saviani, and another one off. Paul Shearer's gone off the road as well. So that's at the banking.
Yeah, so the Paul Saviani off at the exit for Church. You've got the 66 car there rejoining. Paul Shearer has gone off at the banking. He's back into the race as well. Matt Fazy ultimately has continued. That's a worrying moment there for that car, which is still well, it really isn't now the leading car. So I imagine that Ben Rushworth has retaken the lead, hasn't he? Yeah. As a result of all of that.
But that moment for Cole Swift, that must have, or for Rob Baker as it is now, was almost the same situation as Chris Freeman had earlier, except that he was able to avoid the moment that was going on ahead of him. So there's Rushworth, our new leader, retaking the lead, really, I guess, in the Sayat there.
Yeah, he did 121 on that lap, which is good going in the situation. Fazy goes across the line now in 2nd place, and what's the gap between them? It's between 12.5 seconds now, so it's probably 15 seconds or something like that on that lap with that big moment coming out of Church. And it was lucky that he didn't collect Rob Baker, but also he came back across the circuit at one point. There was always the worry there that someone else could be caught up in all of that.
3.2 seconds is the gap to monitor between Rob Boston and Rob Baker at this stage, because they're the leading stoppers still. And here's our two RC cars just together there, I noticed, because Dan Alsano back out in the race. But he's a number of laps behind John Munro now. So they're on 33, Munro on 35. So that's 2 laps between those two cars that are together on the circuit. Just heading now into Church Court, the Mazda ahead of the BMW at this stage. Just heading out of shop there. There they are.
So the 2 top pointers in Class C, the Osano and Oswick car, that's had problems in the pit lane.
Paul Sheard is pitted after his off.
Okay.
And he's driving into the garage, I think. So.
Okay. So to continue the point, Osano and Oswick, they've had problems in the pit lane. Hayes and Subiani have had a number of spins. Nick Dougan and John Munro, they're still out there and leading Class C, but yet to make their stop. Of course, the second quicker drivers out there at the moment in John Munro.
Current 5th place is into the pit lane, Scott Parkin, who's already made his stop, and is that the penalty area?
Yeah, that looks like the penalty area for him.
Just a stop go, that looked to me to be.
Yes, I've not been notified of any particular reason, so...
He doesn't lose that much time, because he was only 10 seconds ahead of Luke Handley, and he's come out ahead of Luke Handley, it would seem, so the stop go penalty isn't so much of a penalty round here.
If that was a pit lane speeding penalty, that's the only thing I would think it would be, given the range of penalties.
Munro's pulled a long way clear from Dan Alsano there as well, who's only quicker than BMW at this stage. As Baker there, heading through the traffic, how's he doing compared to Rob Boston, was ahead of him. So there's a change of lead basically there. So Cole Swift has got himself up ahead of Rob Boston, who he was 2.8 seconds behind. So what has happened to Rob Boston on that lap? But that is the lead in stoppers. So in reality, really, the lead of the race has changed with Rob Baker getting ahead of Rob Boston. Potentially a drama on that lap for Boston. We'll have a look at those lap times, because that seems to not be great for Boston. No, it's a 1:26, much slower than what he should be doing there. We'll see if he can get it back up to speed, whether it was just a small drama. It's about the smallest and biggest cars together on the track there, Ian.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got the little Janetta, that's now being driven by Matthew Tidmarsh. We've got the Holton Commodore. So that's stopped, I think it has, hasn't it? So that's now being driven by Matty Taylor. Yes.
I'm not sure if they're in 7th.
Yeah, possibly right. You can still put the Lashmore out there. Yeah, so multiple. So it's still be out there for its first stint. Be driven next up fairly soon, I think. It's quite a thirsty car, so perhaps it's not too early in the race.
Yeah.
There's the Class C leading car on screen now, heading into turn 1 at Target. That's number 3. That's the 117 car, Martin Gadsby just going to. And someone was getting a stop-go penalty there. You can see the board being hung out, but I couldn't see the number that was being shown to. So try and keep an eye out of the window for that, Josh.
Okay, Daniel Sano, I don't think enjoyed the conditions terribly in the BMW there. He's doing a 132, where John Munro's doing 129. So quite a big difference. And Rob Boston's kind of back up to speed now, but he's not lapping as quick as Rob Baker. So Rob Baker doing a very good job in what is 3rd position currently. There's Parkin after his penalties. Came out though ahead of Luke Handley still. And it's got Parkin involved in the championship lead battle in Class B. Not really, where Handley is the championship leader. And he's just behind there, the car driven by Phil Driver. There was problems earlier. Where did they come out? 20th, so way back. Unsurprising really, because of a very long stop. How's Nigel Greensall getting on with his pace in the M3? He's a few seconds off, I think.
I think that probably one of the penalties, stop go penalties, is for number 5, and the other is for number 3 by the looks of it, which is John Munro. Because they were sort of wielding the board at him as he went past. So I think Packer, I wonder, because they took their penalty under a safety car. I'm not sure if they can do that or not. And what the issue would be for John Munro, the issue would be overtaking under a safety car with yellow flags.
Yeah, that's a 1 minute penalty, wasn't it? So we'll see how that goes. There goes across the line. The battle will become the lead of the race between Baker and Boston. 2.1 seconds between them. That time Boston was quick, wasn't it? They trade fastest laps, or the fastest car on the track, those two. So that's really been a race-long battle, hasn't it? Although we haven't seen it sort of side by side, but it's supposed to be pretty close. There, and they're in the traffic at the moment. So, but Daniel Sylvester's pulling away from them, isn't he? He's doing a really good job in the TT. He's there in 10th place, but he's probably the quickest car on average on circuit at the moment. So a real shame for them. They had that yellow flag penalty, but that's not much less needed penalty because you can't overtake on the yellow flag. So it has to be fully cautioned. So it was a real costly mistake that by Brian Parkin in the first part of the race, because if that wasn't going to be the case, they might have been leading the race right now.
Yep. So 57 minutes of this race left to go, so well into the second half of it. Yeah, the marshal's gesticulating at John Munro because he's passed, I think, probably that board 3 times now, saying, you have got a stop-go penalty, so you've got to stop. You've got to come into the pits, and certainly I can see the board, has got the number 3 on it. It's got another number on it as well, which I can't see.
But the team are just next to them, aren't they? The TWP team are just next to the marshals, so they should be aware of the penalty as well.
Yes, they should be on the radio, you think.
I think John Earp is, isn't he, by the looks of things. I think perhaps he's been trying to argue the case, but he's maybe not been successful. 16 seconds, the lead gap for Ben Rushworth over Matt Fazy. And Rushworth at this stage is not on Baker's pace. Baker showing his speed here, where Rushworth and Swift are pretty similar. It would seem that Rob Baker has the better of Ben Rushworth at this point. There's Driver still. He's up to 19th now. And Scott Parkin, who's 5th. And it's a third of the stoppers, so Scott Parkin can get a very good result out of this in the Diesel Go.
That's right, so he's heading into Church Corner now, working down into Middleburg. So good on tyres we can hear there as one has off. Roy Baptiste BMW looks a little bit slow coming out the bank. It's a bit of a moment there. Watch these 2 different laps. Oh, and there's a big moment for Dallas Sonic. He said he wasn't enjoying these conditions. You might want to be right there, Josh, because it was very sideways as he came down through the corkscrew there, and he, of course, is part of the Class C Championship leading team.
Much bigger gap this time, I'd suggest, between Baker and Boston. Let's take a look at that. Yeah, it's gone out to 4.5 seconds now. There's Munro in the penalty area, and it does look like it's that minute penalty you were anticipating. So this Class C battle, they might not have the biggest class in the Club Enduro Championship, but there's plenty of drama here. So the current race leaders in the penalty box. Second now in Class C is Steve Dolman and Matt Pimlott, MX5.
Yeah, that's Steve Dolman at the wheel of that car at the moment, won't it? I think. There's the 12 car, that's coming as well. Now that's also in the penalty box, and that is also a car, it's in number 2 on the board, and so that could well be a penalty for Scott Parkin. And again, that might well be a sort of 1 minute jobby.
Well, they had that penalty, didn't they? But they were in the penalty box and got out and hardly lost any time. So I wonder if there's a reason those two are linked or not.
Some signals goes on there.
Munro's on his way. He'll still be leading, won't he?
Yes. Hold on, he still needs to make his mandatory stop. So for the next 40 minutes, 45 minutes.
Here's the lead of the race. Check the stop, Ben Rushworth. Do an even longer stint than maybe he was anticipating in what are very tricky conditions to keep adapted to. He comes out, comes to the line.
Yeah, that's complete 44 laps, isn't it, of the race in the hour 10 minutes or so that we've had so far. And he is turning his way through the banking here. So it's number 2, Ben Rushworth leading, number 13. Second place is Matt Fazy. He's just gone across the line 18 seconds behind the leader. Of course, both of them need to make their stop. The first stop is in third place overall is number 1. That is Rob Baker now. 4th is number 9, 5 seconds behind Baker. It's Rob Boston. 5th is number 12. The car that's just been in the pits for the penalty stop. Scott Parkin, he's dropping down the order now behind Luke Handley, 51. 7th, not having yet made a stop with the 46 car, that's Matty Taylor and Will Ashmore. 8th is number 5, Jonathan Packer. 9th is number 11, Daniel Sylvester. 10th is the 117 car with Martin Gansby. I don't know if that's made a stop either, so yeah, you can just see that car going through sharp, being lapped once again by the race leader, number 2, Ben Rushworth, from Hot Hatch and Metro champion. They're in the Corton Miller Cupra. Oh, and off has gone number 8 for a brief spin. That's Matthew Tidmarsh in the Flying Tangerine Racing Gillette G40. Picked up quite a lot of grass there on the front splitter of that car now. So 2.5 minutes remain. It's got to be up to 9th place now, so I'm pretty sure he hasn't made his stop. He's driving solo in that 117 car. There's Fazy going through, just behind Scott Park, I guess he's back out onto the circuit now. So Fazy, the driver, in second place. Oh, and a spin, another spin for Judy McBride. She's only had an off there early on in the race at the exit of the corkscrew. The safety car. This time he's able to get going a little more quickly. Judy McBride in the 67 car that's running in 15th position, having made it. Stop go penalty there we can see for 5 and 179. So that's Jonathan Packer still being urged into the pits. The 179 car, which is the David Gooding and Nigel Greenstall car. Nigel Greenstall now above that car that's running in 12th position, 3 laps behind the leader. So that car needs to come in for a pit stop. Maybe that's a penalty during the driver changes. There it is now, in fact. Nigel Greenstall in there to serve that penalty. The fact that the car is stationary for just a moment is indicative that could be a yellow flag infringement or a safety car overtake. So that car will be stationary for a minute to relieve car commentary position, we think. So there is Scott Parkin going through number 12. So he's dropped to 10 as a result of that penalty that he had to serve. Is 2 laps behind the leader at the moment. Don't forget that the lead lap is lap 46, and it's definitely going to cost at least 2 laps to make a pit stop for either Ben Rushworth or Matt Fazy, unless there is another safety car at some point in the next 35 minutes, in which case they might be able to benefit from that and not lose quality pit stop. You're going to lose at least 2 laps at pit stop under normal racing conditions. So there is 13, Matt Fazy, the intelligent money livery car, making his way through there. And he is from Solihull in the West Midlands, racing 5 years ago, mostly in Club Enduro. This is his favourite circuit. He took an overall win in the Class B car here, as well as in being racing Enduro as well. He was in 10th. Steve Hewson's car, of course. We'll see Steve Hewson, the man from Stafford, out in the second part of the race, the diagnostic technician at part-time racing as well. He raced bikes originally in the late 1980s with the cars in 2014. It was the Class C Club Enduro and overall class champion in 2018 when he shared with Matt Nossiter. But it's still Matt Fazy aboard that car at the moment. It's just behind the car that's sort of lapping in similar lap times, that of Scott Parkin, but that car being 2 laps, 3 laps actually adrift.
Yeah, Scott Parkin obviously lost a lot because of the penalty, much like his brother had earlier on, that dropped the Audi, now runs in 7th, but Daniel Sylvester at the wheel, still one of the quickest drivers on the circuit, soon won't gain his positions. So there is the Porsche that you've been telling us about. Fazy, now 21 seconds behind Ben Rushworth, and as I anticipated, across the line Daniel Sylvester goes 6th ahead of Jonathan Packer. So he's covering well. There's the second place car headed downhill towards the 4th group.
Yeah, and that Porsche was a crash road car in 2020 itself, 35 Steve Hewson. There's Luke Handley, so he for the moment is in 5th place overall and 3rd within that speed, but that will become 2nd effectively, won't it, I think, once Fazy was pitted.
He's a long way behind Boston though, if the top leader.
Yes, that's true.
But he's being caught in position on road by Dan Sylvester, who's 20 seconds back, but lapping 4 seconds lap after last time round. Quite big gains that Dan Sylvester is making. He's 3rd in Class A at this stage. Big slide there. Who was that? 169, which I think is William Lynch. Here's E46 M3.
Looking at Class C, it looks likely to me that when they make their stop, John Monroe and Nick Dougal will lose out to Steve Dolman and Matt Pimlott for the lead of that class. Joel Oswick and Dan Orsano about 30 seconds behind Dolman and Pimlott. There's Packer back into pits for a stop-go penalty. Once again.
At least the second difference.
Yes, well, in a few occasions. There's Handley heading up the hill, number 51.
Just wondering, Ian, if we look at Luke Handley, whether he might be able to wrap up the Class B title in this race, because he came into the weekend 18 points ahead of Chris Freeman, who's retired, and Jonathan Packer keeps getting penalties. So I think Luke Handley might be here on his way to wrapping up the Class B title a race early.
Yes, that's possible. One more race to go is at Alton Park next month. One round of this Club Enduro Championship. Packer's still there serving his nose. You can see the rain blowing across the pit lane as well. 3/4 of an hour or so left to go. There's the Classic Championship leading car. Just go for Don Orsano. What lap times is he doing at the moment? He's doing 1:33s. So he's lapping a couple of seconds faster actually than Steve Dolman, who is ahead within that class. Lapping several seconds slower, I should say, than John Monroe, but he's going to hand over at some point soon-ish to Nick Dougal, I think. At least if you need to make a 3-minute pit stop either way. distance.
There's Rob Boston as Nigel Greensill gets squeezed out over the curves, and there's some contact and he comes back on with Jonathan Barrett. So Rob Boston, I think, needs to have got out of that. But Boston is now 8 seconds behind Rob Baker, so he can't live with the pace of Baker, it would seem. There's Greensill. He's lapping the 124, so that's not too bad. He's 14th in the race. In that M3. He shares with David Goodin. And they are one of the championship contenders in the Clubman Cup. Currently, I think, in 3rd place in the Clubman Cup.
That's right, yes, Jeff still racing car behind Taylor Ashmore, and the Roses one here this weekend, so could well get ahead of Lewis and Aaron Rose, depending on where they finish in the overall running order. Rob Boston leading the Clubman Cup at the moment, isn't he?
Right, and second is the Holden, but yet fit.
Yeah.
Taylor and Ashmore. Then is Gatsby's car a Clubman Cup car?
Let's have a look.
It's not, is it? I think it's not. That is not a Clubman Cup. Looking a bit further down the order. The car in the pit lane is Phil Knibb, who I don't think should be.
It's not a scheduled stop, is it? It's already made its stop. So that was from what position? 13th. Okay. Is that Jonathan Browse going back out? No, it's the Browse car going out into the race again. That was the car that stopped earlier on. So I imagine that's Paul Browse now.
A third, I think, is Nigel Greensill in the Clubman Cup at this stage. So he's doing a good job.
So on that list, they would go ahead of Rose, I think.
Yeah.
In 2nd position with a round to go.
That's Scott Parkin in the traffic. He's 8th now after his penalty. Did he? Oh, there's been contact behind. There's a big spin for Julian McBride, who got tagged by somebody there. Because it all got very tight. So that's a big speed at that point.
Yeah, high speed spin there for Julian McBride. There goes that Paul Browse car ahead of him now. Can Julian get the car? Tricky to get the car. The back man is going to have to drive onto the grass to do so, I think, to get back into the race.
The car's moving now, though, isn't it?
It is. Just Morris is on the National Circuit link.
Guess where he is, are you blinded by the tyre wall? Which won't make it so easy. You know how fast the cars are going at this point.
Yeah. So he's going to try to rejoin. No, he's not going to try to rejoin now, which is as well, because Daniel Sarno is heading there. The problem is there's no real gaps in the traffic.
It might be quicker for him, although he might have to forego a lap if you take the shortcut back here.
Yes.
Just forego out the Holden for the pit lane.
Yes,
so
that's a pit stop.
Second in the Clubman's Cup. Will Ashmore is in to hand over to Matthew Taylor. And he was 8th.
Okay. So still Jim McBride is stranded there. There's no marshal cars there, so marshal can't sort of indicating when there's a gap in the traffic to go for him.
Now I'm not sure if the Holden might have been involved in that incident. There was a lot of cars around the area. So here's Daniel Sarno in the German Autoworks car. He's there in 21st, still behind the Dolman car.
Julian McBride's going to go there.
That's good news. There he is. Good to see. Julian McBride, who was running 17th for that scary moment.
Yes, so 41 minutes of race to go. Couple of cars in the pit lane, but looks like Phil Knibb's going to get back into the race. Of course, the laps probably. That extra stop.
Daniel Sylvester now just 4 seconds behind Luke Handley for 5th, who was going 4 seconds quicker. There's the Holden. There's any damage on that car. And there is the leader, just with Daniel Sylvester actually, in Rob Baker. So these are the 2 quickest cars at the moment. And just ahead should be a goal. There, just ahead, Luke Handley. So I think this lap Sylvester will gain that place, but perhaps on the next one.
Maybe so. This race remaining. Best lap still with Rob Boston, of course, at 1:17.62, but that was much earlier on when the conditions were much improved compared to where they are now.
McBride is pitting after that one.
He's had a few moments during the course of this race, hasn't he? Unfortunately.
Big powerful BMW is probably not the nicest car to drive in these conditions either.
No, especially after because we've had such a good weekend otherwise before we got to this race.
Yeah, yesterday was a lovely day. Today, rather less for the moment, anyway.
It was always forecast this way though, that the rain would come in during the afternoon.
You can see out the window now Daniel Sylvester is with Luke Handley as they head up the hill towards the hairpin. So that position will change shortly. There's a tyre change going on for Julian McQuarrie. See if that helps having some new grooves.
It looks like Daniel Sylvester has gone through at the top of the hill and through into 5th position.
And that's the third of the stock. That's a good recovery from being a lap down with the penalty early on.
Still wait though for Ben Rushworth and Matt Faze to make their stops. They've only got 25 minutes to do that in now. So you have to stop before the final 15 minutes of the race.
Ben Rushworth's longest stint he's done, I think. There he is, I think, the leader. Number 2.
Yep, and just getting past the X5 there.
He's half a minute ahead of Matt Fazy. 66 seconds ahead of third place car, Rob Baker, who is lapping slightly quicker than him.
That's the 52 car, which is the car will I think take the lead in the Class C once John Munro pits, the Steve Dolman from an MX-5, 28 seconds ahead of Daniel Sarno at the moment, who's third in that class.
Has the Dolman car pitted?
Yes, that did fit.
Currently he's being down off Sarno, just 12 seconds back. It's quite the longer pit stop. The German Automotive BMW still to get a very good result out of this.
Yeah, John Barrett swings now, the exit of the swings. One lap, that's part of the 17th position still going most of all cars in the pit lane, so it's a longer stop than I think it ought to have been. To Matty Taylor.
She's got a lot of fuel perhaps going for that car.
Yeah, and the scrutineer just pointing something out as well, I think.
There's Greensall, who started the lap in 12, but I think he's got past William Lynch for 11. In the top 10 is a Janetta, that pitted, didn't it already?
Yes.
So Matthew Tidmarsh and Chris Webster, pretty decent result here. The best result we've seen from that car this year, not been on the podium, I don't think it is going to be here either. Currently 6th, I think, in Class B. So all Class B cars and Class A cars in the top 10, aren't they?
Yeah, there's the Class C lead with John Munro and TDIs Racing. Number 3 car, shown with Nick Dougal, of course, with John, 24 years of age from Banbury now. Moved down from the Highlands as a video producer, and he started racing in 2015. He was the Max 5 champion in 2016. He was a Scottish Sprint champion in 2014 as well. And he's been racing his team for a few seasons now. Nick Dougal, his teammates from Northampton, the MRF tyre supplier. Racing in 2008, we'll see him soon. Not just yet, he's racing out there for a little bit longer. Prepared by the team at Wrexham University. So this is one of their 2 home races between here and Sutton Park. Is the final round of the championship next month. So there's Munro. He's in 13th position overall, 52 laps in the book for him, 56 laps in the book for our race leader Ben Rushworth, who also has yet to make a stop. Cars heading through Church here, including John Munro, but the Audi TT of Daniel Sylvester has just passed them.
Well, John Munro and Nick Dougal, their best result so far this year was 2nd, which came at Croft, Class C.
We've got Carl Swift here. Daniel Sylvester, they're still doing very similar laps. They're both doing about 1 minute 20.5 last time through, although they're on different laps. Rob Baker, I should say, in the number 1 car. He's up to 56 laps. Sylvester's done 55.
Yep.
Cars have done 56, 55 laps.
Baker can't get past, can he? Sylvester doing a grand job. I don't think he's going to overtake any more cars on track because Boston is quite a long way ahead. Over a minute, I think.
It's 13 seconds behind Baker.
It looks like Jack Harding's that record is going to stay, isn't it?
Yes.
Enduro. Oh, no, you're talking up Sylvester, isn't there? He's sideways. He managed to get away. And now Monroe is in, but into the garage.
Yes. So, is there a particular reason for that? That getting the car jacked up? Is this always part of the plan? John Monroe getting out quickly like it's a planned stop. And there's Ben Rushworth. It's all happening. All of a sudden, Ben Rushworth, the race leader, coming in as well. The Coulter Miller play on. So he's going to get out of the car. There's these two cars have been so evenly matched, different laps, but this is the car that will eventually move up to second place then. The Rushworth having now stopped. That's the Dayglow yellow and black Seat of Rob Baker. There you can see fire extinguishers on hand as required when the refuelling is being done. You can see a change of driver there.
I didn't wonder how front tires were last year. Whether conditions have sort of changed how it would have been otherwise. Yeah, they are, but new front tyres on James Ramsden, so hopefully he'll have a bit more front end grip to work with. How far are they going to start the order? They're doing it under green flag conditions. Wasn't the case for the rest. They're probably just over 2 laps, won't they? Which, for in Class A positions, probably still mean they're third, won't it, behind Baker and Sylvester.
Yeah, I think that's pretty correct. Looking at how this is going to play out, which is still a good return from where qualified on the was doing a good job to get the field and actually take the safety car about half an hour or so into the race.
We've got Baker's 20 seconds ahead of Boston now, so brilliant drive at this from Rob Baker. Really quick in this car. Very much to know these cars so well. Running cars here, so in the TCR UK Championship. So now for life. And there's Coulter Miller Cup. Just losing the fast lead as Rob Baker went across the line there.
Yep, so of course it's now Matt Fazy in the lead of the race until he makes his pit stop.
He's only 22 seconds ahead of Baker.
Yes, that's true. Lapping about 4 seconds laps late, so he pretty equals the lead before he makes his pit stop. Matt Fazy. Hand over to Steve Hewson for the final lock-ins of this race.
I think I've come around church and getting him back probably closest to the sea.
He is, yes, very exposed camera position there, just on the cliff edge more or less. Tap from 2 directions, he's been attacked by cars heading towards him, he's attacked by the rain blade from behind him as well.
Just see Dolman being lapped there, and he's been passed by Dan Orsano. The last lap they came through, just thought there's Orsano just ahead. He's pulling clear now. So that is for the lead now in Class C, I think.
Because Steve Dolman's been lapping much more slowly than Dan Orsano. Orsano's been doing 1:28, so 4 seconds off that class best, whereas Dolman's doing 1:34, which is sort of 6 seconds off that class best. So that is Dan Orsano effectively moving to class lead, I think. We've not seen the car 3 go back out yet. Big sideways moment there for the Audi.
Who's got out just ahead of James Ramsden, I think. With Ramsden another lap back. Either way, ahead into 4th position for Sylvester. And he's still ahead on the road of Rob Baker. Here, they work their way through Church Corner. think that Ramsden's another lap back, isn't he, on Sylvester? So Luke Handley has come through to 5th. And I suspect Scott Parkin will come through to 6th. So I think James Ramsden's probably 7th after his pit stop. But there's Rob Boston, how far behind Bakerley now? 22 seconds. It's about a second a lap at the moment. There's the Janetta we mentioned, 10th for Matthew Tinmarsh. Martin Gadsby hadn't stopped yet, has he? So he's in.
Yeah, so this is one of the later stoppers.
Oh, and off has gone Jonathan Packer. He's there. Oh, and the cars behind him's gone off as well. A spin for the car behind him on the road. He's facing backwards. Jonathan Packer grass track his way back on. Can we have a look at the other car? Oh, there's a couple of cars involved, perhaps.
Rouse, he's had a moment, or Paul Rouse, that will be in the Snow Market Glass car, which seems looking for a stop again. Just on the inside of the banking. Half an hour for the race to go. Is that car going to fire up?
There's lots of movement inside the cockpit.
Yes. There's the Gatsby car in the pit lane then, number 117. Solo this weekend.
I think Greensall is into second in the Clubman Cup now. After the pit stop for the Holden.
Paul Rouse car's still there, isn't it? Which is a slight worry. You see safety car lights on the end of the pit lane.
I think Michael Downey third in the Clubman Cup.
That safety car's going out onto the circuit. So we're going to get yellow flags.
Now, the situation here, if we end up getting Rob Baker behind the safety car, I don't know whether that will happen or not, Daniel Sylvester will move on to the lead lap of the race, won't he? Well, Beatty hasn't pitted, so he would be the car behind the safety car. I thought he was going to come in, but he hasn't.
No.
Oh, is this car running slowly?
That's the 52 car, that's the Mazda, which was running well in Class C for a time, but much more so. That's Steve Dolman and Matt Pemlock car. Steve Dolman at the wheel at the moment, we think.
He was shaking the car about here, and just the Nick Dougal Mazda goes back out. That was stop short, wasn't it?
It was, yes. And it was interesting that they'd taken that into the pit garage as well. So really that puts Dan Orsano into a comfortable position within Class C. He's ahead of that Dolman car, and then it's Paul Subiani, and then it's Roy Baptiste, and only then is it Nick Dougal. So they're back down to 5th place within Class C now.
I wonder if Orsano can win the championship. Probably not. I don't think.
Yeah, because they've had a non-finish and a meeting race they didn't enter as well, didn't they? So although they've had 3 wins, the score's not necessarily going to be kind to them, are they?
No, but they're pretty close now, I think. If they win, of course, which they haven't done yet.
No, they've got 27 minutes to go, some of which will be behind the safety car now, while the Paul Rouse cars will pivot.
I think Hayes and Subiani will have to finish second behind them to possibly if they're going to make that work.
We'll see if that's going to happen or not. So the safety car has picked up Matt Fazy. Now, is he going to stay out for a bit longer, or is he going to finally come into the pit lane? He is going to head into the pit. So Matt Fazy heads into the pit lane, which means that the car now behind the safety car is number 5, Jonathan Packer.
It'd be interesting here if they decide to pick up Cole Swift or Rob Baker as the leader or not.
Yes, because he is
4th in line, 5th in line, 6th in line.
yes. No, he's looking for him. He's already gone past me, hasn't he? So
for Daniel Sylvester, that's where it's really important, isn't it? They want to be wave through because then they're on the lead lap.
yeah.
They'll have a lot of traffic between themselves and will be the top 2. Fazy and Hughes could be in a good place here, couldn't they? They'll only lose a lap if they do the same as what everybody else has done. So they'll probably come out in 5th place, I think, which would be 3rd in Class B. Possibly 6th, actually. Perhaps 4th. So fairly well up. So it's worked out for them, hasn't it? Waiting as long as possible for this latest safety car period. that's getting even worse than it was earlier, I think. Up there at Church. Pretty viral conditions up there. Greenstall is in for a tyre change, so he's obviously not enjoying the tyres that he was on. Perhaps he wants some more grooves to help him out. Nigel Greenstall currently 10th,
Yeah.
but as I sort of say, second in the Clubman Cup. I don't, he's not going to catch Boston, is he? That's not going to happen, not on pace anyway. But then Downey is third, and he's a lap behind at this stage. So he really wants to get out on this lap they're currently on, otherwise he might lose the place in the Clubman Cup. Which you were saying earlier, in for the older cars that don't have sequential gearbox.
So, yeah, going to get that car back out into the race.
Looks like they should lose a further lap if the green light's still on.
It is, so they'll get that car out, I'm sure. Into the race. 24 minutes to go. Yeah, Anglesey Circuit's final race of the weekend for the 750 Motorsport Ski World Club Enduro Championship, which is close to being resolved in the various classes. And with still the remaining meeting of the season to take place at Wilson Park next month. That Fazy entertaining us there in the pit lane. But now back to the serious business of getting Steve Hewson back out into the race. There's the Paul Browse car, number 22, about to be brought back to the paddock now that there's a gap in the traffic. That's the second time that car's had to be brought back during the course of this race, I think. So possibly they will admit defeat now, the Browse team. See the car going down the pit lane, and shortly I think the Hewson might get that to be pushed back now, back out into the race. There'll be green lights at the end of the pit lane, and that will be able to catch up with the Crocodile, which is headed by the safety car, which at the moment is just going past the school. Now starting to climb up towards Rocket on a wild afternoon in Wales. We're really having taken a turn for the worse this afternoon here. It was a glorious day yesterday. It's the kind of place where you can get 4 seasons in one day, though. We'll see. Stick the odds on it. See Nick Dougal's car go through there. He's still in 5th place within the Class C at the moment. Pit stop for the TDI team. Which hasn't gone therefore entirely to the plan. But the safety car lights are out, so it looks like the race is going to get back underway. The safety car is in. The green flag is prepared, so with still 22 minutes remaining. The green flag waves, and we go back racing once again. As there's the safety car coming down the pit lane. So Carl Swift was 6th in line, and is still just behind therefore the Daniel Sylvester Audi TT. We'll try and pick them up as they come out of the banking. They've got to 3rd and 4th in the queue now, Sylvester, and then Swift, and then Baker, I should say.
Rockhoff is still 12 seconds behind the leader, so he didn't really gain out of that same spot. There's so many cars in between himself and Baker. Of course, Boston doesn't lead fast speed. That's the main thing. But for Daniel Sylvester, he didn't get to the back of the queue, which probably been hoping for.
That's right. So I think possibly now, with everyone having made their stops, it's just a bit of sense to run down the order for those of you wanting us to do so. Lead then is number 1, which is Rob Baker from the Seat Leon. He's completed 65 laps. Second is number 9, Rob Boston, 12 seconds behind him. Third is number 11, that's Daniel Sylvester, a lap behind. Fourth to number 51, Luke Handley, 14 seconds behind him. Fifth is
Two cars off here.
two cars. One of those is Daniel Sylvester. So one of the front running cars, so he's frustrated. The other car is the Ginetta of number 8, which is Matthew Tidmarsh for the second part of the race. And also Jonathan Barrett's car looked like it was off up there as well. So double waved yellows there. There's the Sylvester car that was in third position. Ahead of Luke Handley, Scott Parkin, Steve Hewson, James Ramsden, Jonathan Packer, Matthew Tidmarsh, William Lynch, who completed the top 10. Shortly we should see Boston come in. There is Daniel Sylvester, still trying to, well, I'm not sure what he's trying to do or where he's trying to go really. Get back to the paddock maybe.
And side by side into Church, right round the outside has gone Scott Parkin for third place.
So it's now about 7.6 seconds behind behind Luke Handley. As for the pits is Daniel Sylvester in the number 11 Audi TT. So their race has really come unstuck. The car gradually tumbling down the timing screen, showing at 8th at the moment. There's the Audi heading into the pit garage. Looks like the race is over for the car. 16 minutes of the race left to go. And then I think the remaining finishers were Edward Christie, the Tidmarsh and Webster car. That was a pit visitor, as were the Parkin and Sylvester car. So I think Christie was the final finisher probably. McBride, Sheard and Ritchie, Browse, Stacey, Freeman and Hooflar, all retirements from that Tiki Walk Club Enduro Championship race. Well, that brings to an end